Hi, this is Justice. In this 7th video for the Brush Creator series, we're going to put what we learned into practice. We're going to be making 3 brushes and maybe a 4th if this goes smoothly. And then you guys can ask comments in the comment section. I'll show you how to get more brushes and more color sets from Rebelle for free, and how to share your own at the end of this video. All right, here you can see a chain brush, and the idea is not that we're making chains. The idea is that we're learning how to space, and we're learning how to use tilt and follow trajectory in a brush, and also how to create our own shape. That's the point of this first brush. So not a perfect chain brush, but it'll give you an idea of how to do a number of different things. All right, so let's start with this one. We are going to start with a liner. And let's open up the brush creator. So what we're going to do is we're going to set these all to its most basic settings. So I'm in watercolor brushes. I'm using a liner. This liner is very similar to this one right down here. So we can actually, we'll just start with this one and we'll duplicate, and then let's bring this up. Let's bring it all the way up. Liner 5. And then let's make 2 more of these since we're going to be making 2 more brushes. Okay, liner 1. Let's rename this so we know what we're doing. And let's put chain 2 because we have one already. And this one we are going to name leaf. And this one we are going to name hair. All right, for chain 1, what we're going to do first is we are going to make a chain shape. Now you can do this a bunch of different ways. You can actually pull an image off of Google and paste it in here, and that is fine. But we're just going to do it this way. All right, that's chainy looking. So we're going to use our selection tool. We're going to select. And then what we're going to do, chain 2, we're going to click on shape, and we're going to import selection. All right, Control D, so that we no longer have a selection on the screen. And here we need to make sure that we set these all back to 0, just so that we can see what's going on. If we leave this as it is, as we draw, this is going to grow and shrink, and we don't want that. We also need to space this out. So we're going to use spacing right here to do that. So let's we'll bring size down to 0 or close to 0. This means our size is being influenced -1% with pressure. Spacing, we're going to bring this up. Let's just put this at 0. Spacing, we're going to bring this up, and you're going to start seeing the chain having chain-like properties so that we can see the entire shape. Now this is gray. It's not a fully opaque chain link. And so we need to change our grain so that all of this shape passes through. That means the cleanest, clearest grain we can use, which is this one right here, grain plane 255, is going to let everything through like a really clean window, and you're shining a flashlight through it. All right, so now as we go, you can see we've got a lot better color coming through. Okay, now spacing is actually okay. These we do have set at 0 already, which is great. Rotation, we're going to choose follow trajectory. Let's clear our layer. And now if we do this, you're going to look and you go, huh, that doesn't look right. And the reason it doesn't look right is over here in settings, in preferences, we have always use pen tilt rotation instead of follow trajectory in Brush Creator. I like this turned on. And I can use it effectively because I know that this force rotation button is going to override that and give me a much cleaner follow trajectory shape and path. Now this is probably a little too close. So let's bring this distance up just a little bit and try again. That's maybe a little too far. Let's make our brush size larger in general so we can see this easier. And some of these you may have to do a couple passes in order to get each section to look the way you want it to. You can also use a grain here. Like if we choose this path right here, this is actually going to cut into this shape. Now, if we choose follow shape rotation and theoretically also follow shape size, this can create some really nice texture on your brush, on the shape. And what you can do is if you take this and you duplicate it, and let's flip this around like this and leave this the same, and let's duplicate it one more time, and let's flip this around, we can have some nice, somewhat organic looking shapes and grains. It doesn't look like a duplicate the whole time. This corner is driving me a little crazy. Maybe I'm going too slow. I think that's the problem. Let's see. Yes, I'm going too slow. All right, go faster around the corners. All right, so you guys can see here how you can get some really nice organic shapes using the grain to mask out some of the shape here. All right, that's going to be it for our chain brush. Okay, let's go ahead and clear the layer. And let's look at our second brush here, so our leaf brush. So what we can do, I'm going to, instead of importing a leaf from somewhere online, I'm just going to take one leaf image from another brush. All right, there we go. There's a leaf right here. So what we're going to do, and this is just representing as if we were copying a leaf from Google, a PNG, and just pasting it on it, or you can just draw it in, doesn't matter. Okay, we're going to select our magic wand this time, and we're doing a slightly different process. I'm going to tap on the screen. I have a couple different leaves on here. So let's do this again so we have just one for simplicity's sake. All right, let's go back up here to our leaf brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our selection tool, magic wand. We're going to tap on the screen. Oops, we have some extra ones here. Let's erase those first. And delete. All right, and let's go here. And we're going to tap on the screen. All right, we have just this selected. Now we're going to invert it, which is this button here, Control-Shift-I. So now instead of selecting everything around it, we're selecting inside of it. We're going to tap on our shape. We're going to import. Now we have a leaf. Now again, we can change our grain so that more of this passes through. And let's rotate this so it's a little bit more upright. Good. Now we're using a number of different jitters in the leaf brush. Let's hit Control D to deselect. Press 1 to select so we can paint. And let's increase the size of this brush. Beautiful. Which, by the way, this is really fun for making some very cool brushes. But we have to adjust our spacing again. Here we're actually going to go pretty high, around 70%. And then we're going to increase our jitter, our size jitter, our angle jitter, not our angle jitter, and our spacing jitter and scatter. Now as we go through here, you can see that we've got a lot more organic placement. Now if you're looking at this and you're going, well, these leaves they're too random or the wrong angle, you can adjust the starting angle. Adjust the starting angle. Notice these ones are all facing down. You can adjust the angle here again. Note they're all facing to the left. And this is a good way if you're trying to do some leaves on one half of the tree and you want it to be a little bit more realistic than just kind of a splotch of leaves. Okay, now here we have size. You see that the size here is very, very small with pressure. We want to get rid of that. We're actually going to put this down here so size is adjusted here, but not that dramatically. Let's take another look. That's worth bringing our regular brush size down a little bit. All right, and that's actually pretty good. So one thing I'll point out here, the leaf brush, I like a little bit of water, not a lot, and I like to use fast dry and dry the layer frequently. So here, and then this is going to diffuse, but you're going to notice that this diffuses a bit much here in the center, more than we want. So we would do some here in the center, let it diffuse just for a second, and then hit Shift D. So let's do that one more time. And Shift D, and we're freezing it at the level of diffusion that we want for this because we have some light passing through and this is going to look really pretty. Now I also like to use mixed colors, which is X for color picking. And that means that when I tap here, this is going to move towards the color. Let it diffuse a second, Shift D, towards the color. And then here, if we want some nice greens and then some spring greens, we can get something really organic by tapping in between these. All right, you guys, so that is a leaf brush. Let's go on to our third brush, our hairbrush. And internally, I laugh every time I say that. I think it's very cute. So let's pick a really black color, and we're going to make some very let's bring our water down, and we need to uncheck mix colors. Let's choose black. Not that this has to be black. Let's bring the size of our brush down a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to make some little hair follicles. We want these to be really black. Really opaque is actually what we're trying to do. All right, that looks good. Let's go back and select this. So we're going to select. This time we're just going to use a rectangle and go right over the top. And then up here, we're going to click on our shape and we are going to import our selection. Now I made this before. I used bigger dots. This time we're going to use smaller dots. Okay, let's deselect right here, Control D. And let's clear our layer. Let's press 1 so we go back to painting, and let's bring our brush size really high. Okay, now this one, our size, we're actually going to let size stay a little bit, but not a lot. We want it to grow and shrink some, but not all the way down to a single line. All right, that looks pretty good. Now on this one, we're going to do something very different. When smudge and some of these other ones are used, we get a little bit of aberration, and we don't want that. So I'm going to first turn on rotation. We're going to use pen tilt. I like that. And then we're going to go up here to spacing. I'm going to bring this actually down very low. We're going to bring it to 1. Now, if your system is slow and laggy with this, you can turn smudge on, and it's going to do this at a fairly decent level, but it's not going to be as smooth. Okay, let's change our grain so we can see through this nice and easily. Good. And let's turn smudge off, bring spacing down. There we go. And we're going to increase the opacity so we can have a little bit of a ramp here. Okay, we need to turn paper texture strength and paper texture contrast off. All right, let's decrease the amount of size that's being affected. and bring our opacity up a little bit more. All right, that's looking pretty good. Then one additional thing that I like to do for a hairbrush is to add, again, a little bit more variation so that this is a little less the same. All right, let's add one more, and we're going to flip. We could add one more even, and so now when we go through, each of these are slightly different, and we're going to switch texture order to pen pressure. All right, and that's looking pretty good. Now, what I recommend doing here is, let's go ahead and pick a hair color. So let's say you're going through, and not that I would recommend doing it quite this way, but if you want to bring the overall color up, we're going to click on Mix Color here. And let's say we want to make this a little lighter. You can do some lighter strands here in the center. And then let's do some darker ones over here. And if you're painting on it, you can switch to blend and get some really nice results this way. And then if you have a shape that you really like already, like say we want to cut in here with the erase, then using this option right here, lock transparency, this is going to let us paint just on top of what's currently there. So this is a good way if you're making a just a section of hair. You can make a section here. Let's turn on freehand. So let's say we wanted just this section here, then we can do the same thing we did before. We're going to invert the selection. We're going to delete everything outside of the selection with the delete key. We're going to deselect. Now we have this section of hair, and then if we hit lock transparency, it's going to stay just like this. So then we can go over here, again, press 1 to switch to that paintbrush, and let's add a little bit of color to the center and a little bit of darkness to the edges. Make it a little darker, and then we can blend it with 4. And this brush is going to give you some really beautiful hair-like textures. Let's bring this up a little bit. So you can see how this would blend. And then there's one additional thing for hair that I like to do. Again, just hit lock transparency to undo that, is I use a pulled string brush right here. This is super basic, and all I do is I make sure that I have the settings are here, pulled string, and so I would bring this down and sample, and you can have very elegant, beautiful strands of hair that follow through. Now, this I would do on a separate layer. So let's do separate layer. So we're going to create a layer, Control-Shift-N right here. All right, we've got our beautiful strand. Not that this would be exactly how we would do it, but this will demonstrate the idea. Okay, so we've got some beautiful strands of hair. Since we have this on a separate layer, we can lock transparency and then grab any old brush. Let's say we choose our hairbrush again, and go up here and let's add some sections where it's lighter. And then we can do some sections where it's a little darker. And then if we blend this, so we could choose, I use, my favorite brush is the Square Soft. It's a personal brush. But here, if I blend it with 4, you can see we can get some really nice gradients on a single strand of hair. So if you wanted to do some highlights where the light shines in, some shadows, then this is a good way to do it. And then you're painting just on those, and then you can push the color back. It's very nice. All right, guys, that's it for the brushes section. So if you want more brushes, you want some of these brushes, you can go on the Rebelle website right here, share brushes. Will get you to this spot. This is where you can share your own. You would just select the ones that you just made. Click on this little checkbox. You can name it right here and then click on accept. And then you can share it to the library. If you want to visit the brush library, click right here. This will bring you to the brush library. And then these you can actually just drag and drop these over into Rebelle. So let's say I want these brushes by Tom Galovich. I can just grab it with my mouse. Yep, there we go. And then we drag it right here on the screen. Now this won't work because this window is open. So let's close that window. Let me show you that again. So right here, let's close the brush creator. Let's say I want these flats by Tom Galovich. I can drag it here and drop it in. This will say, please restart. So we need to do that. And you can do the same thing actually with color sets right here. You can just grab it and drag it over here, and it will actually immediately show up in your color sets, which are right there. All right, and you can see I did this the other day twice. I have a lot more tutorials on my website, tabletpro.com/rebelle, and then I'll link to a grass brush. This grass brush right here, this is tilt sensitive. It's got 4 different shapes that alternate based off of pressure, so you can create some very realistic grass. And I show how to do this on my channel. So that's here on YouTube, Tablet Pro. Go ahead and check that out. And if you guys have comments or questions about this content, put it in the comment section. I'll be checking that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next series.